Hello and welcome everyone. This is Taco Movie Talks. Just recently got done watching the entirety of the Terminator series, and I wanted to relay my thoughts with you because I do think, if not for just the first two pieces, this is definitely a very cool series, or I guess better, the Terminator idea is very cool. And with there being rumors that James Cameron has slated to create a new Terminator movie by the end of the 2020s, I always feel like it's worth discussing. And with the Terminator 1984, it's hot off the heels of Blade Runner and The Thing. The world had come in droves for the idea of being scared by something seemingly human but not. While the idea was funnily enough inspired more by Carpenter's Halloween and not The Thing, the idea had shown promise in the 1980s, and the Terminator expanded on it in its own way. AI taking over and exterminating the human race with a mix of time travel to bring the plot to a contemporary time period, the 80s. This mashup creates a brilliant idea and a great movie overall. A perfect way to start a series because it introduces so many cool ideas. 4 out of 5. It is great in my opinion and ranks number 2. And with Terminator 2 Judgment Day, um, there is some spoilers. Just spoiler warning. If you don't know, and I guess this goes for the entire series, if you don't know Arnold Schwarzenegger comes back in 2 and is the good guy, I don't know what to tell you. Watch the movie still. It's like, it is a huge twist, but I feel like everyone is probably even aware of that, even if you've never seen the movie. I think even I knew it before I actually watched it. But Judgment Day is Cameron unleashed. James Cameron unleashed. As the bigger budget allows for bigger stunts and bigger action, this movie would have been for naught had the simple twist not been concocted, and that twist being the one I was talking about originally, where Arnold comes back again, this time sent by James Connor, the leader of humanity in the future, and Arnold being on the side of good. It shows an evolution and progression in the story, as well as reconstructing fear of the antagonist. Meaning, Arnie was the Terminator in the Terminator. This one, he's technically a Terminator, but on the side of good. And then you have the bad guy who's a different kind of Terminator, T-1000, a liquid metal Terminator who looks sleeker and fits in better. He's able to look like a cop. So it makes you more afraid of like the average man who's ever capable. And Terminator 2 did it really freaking well. And that is the best film in the series. I think that's pretty much unanimous amongst Terminator fans, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. Number 3 is T3, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machine. T3 hangs on to all the successful elements that came from its predecessors and does just enough to remain enjoyable. The action sequences are still there and decent, but the descent has begun. No longer do we have characters we care about, nor performances that are great outside of Arnold Schwarzenegger. T2 had a really great performance by Sarah Connor. And then The Terminator, it's a sci-fi film where Kyle Reese is a good performance. Sarah Connor is good. This one, you really don't feel connected to anyone outside of, ironically, Arnold Schwarzenegger. But the action sequences do make it like a thrilling movie. And unfortunately, that was the last little bit to hang on to, and These other films tried to keep that as a hook, but even struggled with that. By the way, I already said it, but T3 is number 3, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And that takes us to Terminator Salvation 2009. Like the Terminator, the movie Salvation feels cold and devoid of human life. Seeing Christian Bale attached to this movie inspired some hope, but that hope is quickly lost when the movie begins. I know this film is going for a bleak tone, but it's so detached from humanity that it is hard to enjoy. I put Terminator Salvation at number 5 out of the 6 films in the series, and I gave it a 2.5 out of 5, with the next film being Terminator Genisys. Genesis tries to rekindle the flame that once burned so bright with a constant flow of nostalgia bait. The film even tries to inspire the same fear felt for the T1000 while giving enough changes to call it unique, but it doesn't do enough. This film introduces playing with the timeline, which could have been interesting, but only serves to slightly confuse and mildly amuse. Terminator Genisys is a 2.5 out of 5 for me, just slightly better than Salvation, and ranks number 4. Both Genisys and Dark Fate feel very much like they were trying to capitalize on what we were seeing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Big CGI action sequences with a title that would get people to come in. And I think definitely for Genisys or maybe Dark Fate, I'm sure both were successful. I mean, Terminator Dark Fate was a financial success, critically panned, and that goes for both of these films. Whereas Marvel was better received, but I do think even amongst Marvel critics, you would be able to argue, especially at its best, Marvel does outdo Terminator in the 2010s plus. Just better ideas, the action sequences come across better, and you actually care about the characters way more than Terminator. Really, the only one that you really have a connection to is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Dark Fate tries to bring in Sarah Connor and have you care about her, but it has been a while since you've seen her, so you do feel a bit detached. It was a good idea to bring her back, but I, look, going to Dark Fate, apparently my viewing experience was different than others, though I've rewatched scenes on YouTube to experiment and have found footage from the scenes in particular that had bad lighting while watching it on the big screen at home. The lighting was slightly better, but there was definitely still issues with scenes being too dark and making specific instances hard to decipher. I docked the entire movie a half star for this, just because other people really didn't complain about it, and that's such a huge thing that I feel like if it wasn't unique to me, everyone would be saying this. And it would rank above Genisys if my viewing experience wasn't like that. So take that with a grain of salt. That this movie isn't necessarily worse than Salvation or Genisys. It's just, look, if it's so dark I can't see it, I can only really grade what I've seen. Again, if I ignore that, it's above Genisys, but it also didn't bring much new to the table outside of Arnold having a semblance of humanity to him, which feels like that's been explored a lot in the past. A new chosen one, which that is definitely new, though it's still concocting the same formula. It's trying to do a spin on, well, Sarah Connor was only special because she was going to be pregnant with the one, and this is a female that is the chosen one. I don't know. I never looked at it through a lens of the gender. You know, John Connor, his protection story feels very similar to that. So, and then augmented humans being protectors and going into the past as opposed to Terminators. Um, yeah, it doesn't add much. I guess you know, it is trying to play with like humans are becoming more like machines and machines are becoming more human, and I guess there is some commentary there that's relevant, especially in today where AI is becoming a huge thing, and you know, we're looking into different ways that we can enhance humans, but it didn't explore them in an interesting way. Let me know. Hey, have you watched the Terminator series? Are you thinking about watching the Terminator series? Despite my low rankings and giving Terminator Dark Fate a 2-star and ranking it 6th, including the complaints I had about the lighting, I definitely think it was worth it. And you know what else is worth it? Subscribing to the channel, because the support really does matter to me, and I appreciate each and every single one of you who have subscribed. I I like this series. I mean, the first two make it very much worth watching, and after that you can kind of leave it if you want to, but if you like the characters, I mean, go along for the ride, even though the movies aren't brilliant by really any measure. I appreciate y'all joining me. Be sure to like the video. Again, subscribe, and I will catch you on the flippity floop. Bye, y'all.